Welcome back, everyone. So today I want to take a little bit of a look at salvage, some of the footage I've gotten in 4.0 for some testing. This isn't in the the current build of 4.0, but it's a couple builds old at this point, but I haven't had time to put it together. So comparing first the pricing, and then we'll take a look at some of the missions and the other things that I found. So in live, I'm going to go off of the RMC price of 12K, about 12K, and then for construction material, I'm going to go off the price of 1500. So if we compare those two compared to what we have now in 4.0, the construction materials actually up a little bit by 2.2K, and then the RMC is down a bit by 10.8K. So that is a 44% increase or 44.5% increase in construction material, and then 11% loss in the RMC. So you can see a lot of these assets have been changed anyways for commodities, and we're going to see more of that going into 4.0. So it just kind of gives us a basis to go off of. Let's take a look at some of the missions and the other salvaging finds that I've got so far. First, we do have a mission that's made available. There's no unverified ones, but you can see this Xenothreat one where you're going to get a Redeemer. It's actually not just a Redeemer, but you're reading through the log here. It makes it sound like it's should be a little more spicy than it ended up being. So I don't know. Obviously, I think that's probably a flaw. I expect there to actually be Xeno ships to probably attack you while you're doing this, but when I did this, it was super easy. So that being said, you are going to get access to Redeemer. You can accept this offer and it'll give you a marker. That being said as well, it's kind of like not the cleanup mission, but like the large salvaging mission, the Auec disaster, but you're not having to pay for it. So I like this mission. I mean, this is an interesting change of pace. So it is actually out towards Pyro. It's actually closer to Pyro 4. Yeah, you can see here it's leading off just a little bit outside of Pyro 5/Pyro 4. Pyro 4 is just outside of Pyro 5 because I think it clashed with it, and then it's now in orbit of Pyro 5. Instead of being in orbit of the sun out here, or whatever their solar, the star is there. At any rate, you do get a marker for it. You can head out there, and we'll take a look at that once I show up at that mission point. So once you get out there, you can see there's a number of contacts out here, or a bunch of different tracks out here, and I think there were about 6. And at the end of the day, you can just kind of pick one. I mean, I thought I'd just go towards the Redeemer and get that one squared away, but it was a little bit buggy. I mean, that goes without saying possibly, but ended up being when I scrapped the first ship, because I thought I would, I ended up scraping the first ship. I went for the Connie first, and then by the time I finished that one and fracked that ship, it actually completed the mission for me. So that part I don't think is working correctly. The remaining salvage, it did go down, but then the markers also persisted. So definitely some challenges here, but I really like this mission. I mean, it's free. You get to show up. I happen to be in the Reclaimer. I had problems with my Vulture. I don't have footage of this, but every time I took out the Polaris with the Vulture inside of it, the Vulture would fall out. So that's not ideal. So I don't know. It's been like that for a couple of these patch iterations for 4.0. I don't know if they wanted to keep it that way, but whenever I seem to go out, the ship takes damage and then the Vulture falls out. So again, I don't know if that's intentional. I hope not. But right now, that's why it's just easier to get in the Reclaimer and come out here and do these missions, especially in Pyro, where you need more fuel to kind of get around. You can see the different variety of ships here, Redeemer being a bigger one, the Freelancer, and the Freelancer did have loot. We'll get into that a little bit. And then, again, I started with the Constellation. I also noticed as well when I scrapped a lot of these ships, there was a bit of a reduction versus what I have captured as well from my records. That being said, I don't know if I'll be able to do that again because I'm going to lose all of my ships that I've got in 4.0. And I'm not going to be able to buy them all back. So I don't know if I'll ever be able to go through again and scrape all the different ships, solo-wise at least, and do an archive of this is how much materials you got, unfortunately. But that wasn't a super viewed video as it is. So anyways, let's get into it. I'll show you the Connie. I'll show a couple of these, and then I'll show the loot in the Freelancer. And then you can see here some of the cargo stuff. It does happen to have cargo. There's some slam, some weevil eggs, quite a bit of distilled spirits. So I do end up looting that stuff just for completionist kind of sake, and just the fun of it. But I wanted to be quick about this because server errors, and of course I did lose this mission. Well, the mission kind of stayed around, but I lost the ships during the server error. So I only got a couple of these taken care of. Well, I only got the Connie really, I think, taken care of before that server error, and then they were just gone. So yeah, stuff to still be worked through, and then I'll show some panels, and I'll show where I sold this RMC and stuff at. Actually, I think I only sold the RMC. I did go back to the station, but I'll show some details about that as well. Unfortunately, the commodity trading stuff was not there at the station. I think that's a bug as well. So starting off with the Connie, the Constellation class, I started off with 0 here, and I ended up scraping this down both sides. I might have missed a spot here or there, but I did see a reduction of about 50% in what I had. So I previously had 12 RMC is what should be the amount that I should expect when I'm scraping the ship, and I did come up with 8.1, so a 50% reduction. Obviously 12 is not half of, or 8 is not half of 12, but it's the difference between those two. It's the percent change. So it's that 4 that we're talking about there. So 50% reduction, or 4 less RMC than I was expecting. And then Freelancer here, I scraped down as well, and it actually had a bit of an increase versus what I had, about 14.3 up. So I have about 6 on my spreadsheet, and then it showed 7 is what I was able to scrape. I bumped it up a bit. It was about 6.9, 6.8, 6.9, somewhere in there, versus the few that I had left over in the buffer. At the end of the day, though, that's what I was able to find. It's hard to tell if the ships have been nerfed or buffed in how much material they're giving. Do note that ships that do appear to have higher values in armor, such as Hammerhead, should give you more RMC as well. So just look for ships. If you're looking for a ship and you can't decide between the two, go for the ship that should have more armor. That should be the one that should give you more RMC. Yeah, so you can see here, there's a less responsiveness. I did pull up my chat here just because I knew the server was dying, and sure enough, it didn't take long, and the server popped up, and that point I lost the mission. However, you can see I still retain the markers. When I mentioned the armor piece too, I should have started with the Redeemer, right? It should have the most armor. So I should have started with that one. Just really, I wanted to test out a couple ships, so I started with some of the smaller ones. Not the smallest, but some of the smaller type ones, to get in there, to get an idea of what was going on. After this, we're going to move on to take a look for some panels. Actually, I'll show how I sold the RMC first before we go do the panels, just so you can see where I went to. I believe I went to Ashland, so we'll take a look at that next. So I think this was called Ashland. You can see there was a couple of mules next to the pads as well. I actually took one of the mules from the other pad and put it in a reclaimer. They're just, I think, NPC mules, so I don't know, feel free to take one, I guess. I did. So I don't know how often, but there's always NPC ships and stuff. There was actually a 400i here as well, but that ended up being a player. Luckily, I don't know, we didn't have any beef, so he moved on and made it his merry way. I didn't have the bigger tractor rifle or tractor max lift, so I went ahead and kind of finagled these over here from the parking spot that I'm currently at. There are kind of these pads that are around. There's 2 of these particular cargo freight elevators, so you can kind of see them on the ground there. Additionally, I did a lot of hopping around here because the last time I was at this planet and this particular spot, I was in a building, but I did fall through the planet. So I do a lot of jumping here just to kind of keep my feet not on the ground. So you can see that the reclaimer is kind of blocking it, but I went ahead and moved the reclaimer a little further away, and then you can make your way around towards the back. Whenever you're thinking about these different places for selling commodities, be mindful to look for, I don't know, for me, seems to work, but I always look for a building with a kind of like radar or some sort of satellite or antenna on it, because I guess that's how it transacts or does the transactions and stuff. So you can see that the tower itself has one here. I just send this stuff down, and then I make my way around the other side here to go sell at the commodities. And the RMC price is the same. I would actually like to see in Pyro the price be higher for RMC. I mean, might as well, because it's actually, a little more danger. So it should be the, high risk, high reward type thing. But anyways, you kind of see the pylons at the top here. So I don't know this, but either way, this is the building along the side. I shouldn't have been messing with the wall here, but this building is the one that you need to go into in order to sell the commodities. Again, I try to keep, I know it might be annoying to watch me hop around, but I did not have luck with a lot of these buildings, and I fell through at least once, if not twice. So I just was trying to reduce my time on the ground. Anyways, you can see, yeah, it's Ashland. You go ahead and you pick your particular spot, and the price didn't change here. It's still 10.8k. And then, yeah, I just sold everything I had here. I couldn't sell the construction material here or the weevil eggs. I may be able to sell the spirits, but yeah, I just sold the RMC here. I wasn't interested in hanging out too terribly long. I wanted to test out other things. So we'll move on to look at the salvage panels, and then I'll show that the commodity wasn't working right at the station as well. Yeah, so I like to go out to Pyro 4. I tried another place. Actually, I tried where the mission markers originally were, that little spot out there, and I wasn't buying any salvage. So I did go to Pyro 4, and it kind of reminds me of like Yella, where it has like an asteroid kind of thing. Again, it like hit Pyro 5, so my understanding from the lore. So it's got all this kind of debris and stuff around it, so it should be much more like Yella. You can see here I do have a contact, and this time I actually do see the 8,000 marker. So that's working correctly as well. So scanning does appear to be working. However, when it comes time to actually go look for the salvage, do note that the large was a mess again. I would say the pinging was okay. As you saw here, I was kind of losing track of it, and it didn't actually show the markers like you would commonly see. And I was having a hard time like scanning it as well. So anyways, I just used it as like the best way I could to kind of go towards that direction and slowly kind of creep up on it, if you will, to try to maximize my ability to actually see the salvage. So I do end up finding a small salvage thing here. I do have some other videos with other salvage as well. I was able to eventually find large, small, and medium. I also got less salvage on those as well. But yeah, overall, it was not ideal the way the panels were showing up, but at least it was working mostly. So yeah, so it does appear that you can do salvaging through panels if you'd like, if that's something you want to do instead of working through the missions. That does appear to be an option here out here in Pyro. Yeah, so once you find the large panels, it could be a challenge to keep them in view. As you saw in the previous clip part where I was in third person view, I was right next to it. It still would kind of come in and out of frame there. So I wasn't really out of frame. It just was coming in and out of view. So like even now I'm looking at it, you can kind of see it, but depending on what angle you're looking at, it may or may not fall out of frame. So I already had one RMC in the buffer, so that's kind of the baseline. And then I was able to get 7.1, I think, overall the finish here. So it was about 6 RMC, which if again, according to my notes, I had about 12 RMC from these large panels before. So that's a pretty significant drop. Obviously gives half of what it did before. So I don't know if you want to look at that as it's a pretty big loss. So yeah, I don't know if, again, that's what we expect, or maybe I'm already out of touch. Maybe they're like that in live. It's just last time I did testing, they were giving out about 12. I don't recall. I mean, I had slots for medium and small as well, but just know that all in all, it seems like stuff's probably giving less material. You're getting less for it as well. So that appears to be the name of the game as we go into 4.0. Yeah, so I look forward to these economy changes, but I don't know if I agree with the way they're going right now. With the cost of everything going up, skyrocketing so high, there's not going to be enough margin left to actually be able to enjoy the game and be able to purchase and work towards other ships. So, I mean, for those that are purchasing all the ships, that's not a problem for them, but there's still going to be quite a few that want to earn the ships in game, and they're not leaving enough margin in there to actually probably enjoy it in the ways that people want to. Not without significant time sinks. Even when you're doing raids, I mean, think about it in other games. I'm going to show some medium panels here, and I just want to make this point, but when you're doing raids and stuff, you're still getting gear, or you know when gear's coming, so you don't want to spend, like, you can spend months in a raid, sure, but at the end of the day, like, you're working towards progressing something, and usually you get a little something along the way. So with progress, a lot of people don't want to work towards these other ships, but the amount of money you can actually make, the margin on it, it seems to be pretty bad compared to the expenses. So yeah, a little disappointed with some of these economy changes thus far. So here you can see I already had about 8 SCU in my buffer. I quickly ramped that up to 8 once I started scraping this, and I only got 10.5 at the end, so these medium panels appear to be about 2.5, which is about half of what I had saw previously as well, so quite a bit of a reduction there as well. So that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate to see that these panels appear to have been nerfed, at least again. That's assuming I haven't done panels in live in a little while, so it could be the same the way it is right now in live. I could be misspeaking or speaking out of turn here, but anyways, yeah, I was a little disappointed in the materials I was able to gain, but I mean, I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. 4.0, everything's gonna cause a wipe anyway, so I'll be interested to see how everything will play out once 4.0 goes live. Again, this isn't gospel. At the end of the day, these could all change. These numbers could be retweaked as we go into later builds of 4.0 or later waves. That being said, I did go back to the space station. I did mention I would talk about these commodities. So if you go down, there's a cargo section. I think I accessed these through the hangar, actually, the hangar elevators. You can go down like a cargo section, and there's a refinery. It might have actually been called a refinery, but there is a commodity listing here. But when you go, they're actually like cargo shops, so which is fine because you can actually buy crews and some other good stuff here. So head down to the refinery / cargo section. You can get some good stuff down here, including, you know, the multi-tools and stuff like that. But if you want to sell commodities, you really want the commodity sections, the panels, or the commodity terminals. So there were 2 cargo services here, and then there were 2 in the back with other gear spread around. So, and then there was some refinery. So at the end of the day, it seems like they just missed the mark on this and accidentally put in 2 cargo services here, when in fact these should have been some terminals for commodities. That's about all I had. I look forward to doing some more testing in 4.0. Some of the missions are not working as is right now, so hopefully these later builds will have some cleaning up of what we've seen thus far, so far at least that I've seen in 4.0. and I look forward to having 4.0 actually released. So thank you all for checking out the video, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace. As we tread through the storm.